Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, wishing all of you, my fellow Americans, a wonderful, happy 4th of July!
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore. Perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July, and you will once again be fighting for our freedom from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live, to exist. And should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
And even if you're not an American, happy 4th of July. It's a great holiday. Go America! Now, I'm not here today to rant about how amazing America is, but instead I want to rant about something that, oh boy, just grinds my gears. And that is the fact that so many people do not know who the audience for their story is supposed to be. Ah! And no, seriously, it does make me really, really upset. One of the very first lessons that was just pounded into me back when I studied video production was always know who your audience is. My teacher would actually fail us for that day if we did not answer that the first and most important thing that we needed to know for any project was, who is your audience? You need to know who your target audience is for any story or production that you're doing. Unless you know exactly whom you are writing for, well, in all honesty, you're kind of going to be all over the place. Now then, the most immediate answer that I hear from a lot of people is, well, I'm writing this for myself. And you know what? That's a good answer. If you know that you're writing this for yourself, chances are you're probably enjoying what you're writing. I really hope you are. Because if you're enjoying what you're writing, you will put your all into that story. You're going to do your absolute best to make it the best that it can be. If you're not enjoying what you're writing, if you're not writing this for yourself, well, it tends to be very difficult to finish the project, and it just usually ends up falling apart. So it's good that you're writing the story for yourself. But if you want to be an author who gives his or her stories out to the rest of the world, the fact of the matter is that you as the sole audience member is not going to be enough. You want to make sure that your story is able to reach out to other people. Now, this is a topic that I've really wanted to address ever since the massive debacle around who on earth should be watching or enjoying or not enjoying Disney Pixar's Turning Red. In all honesty, this is an absolutely sweet, adorable movie. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of laughs while watching it. However, I readily understand that there's nothing in this movie that immediately speaks to me. I'm not a young girl. I'm not Asian. I'm not Canadian. I don't have that kind of background. I never had those kinds of friends growing up. But that doesn't mean that the story can't speak to me. And this is one of the things that we have to understand. Amongst the massive debate of, well, this movie wasn't made for you. Maybe I'm not the audience that this movie quite intended. Well, here's the thing. It doesn't matter, because Turning Red was really, really well made. It was a very cute story that I think has maybe some way wider applications for a large variety of people, and not just for a very specific audience. Now then, if we dial it back right here, I think it is pretty clear to say that the target audience for this movie was young girls. If you said very specifically, no, it is for young Asian Canadian girls, well, that's a very, very niche community that you're speaking to. And if you're going to make a big budget movie or big budget story for that, you're not going to make your money back. And that is, once again, one of the big issues. If you make your target audience really small, well, chances are you're not going to get good returns or good views or good reads, whatever, on that specific story that you've written. However, that doesn't mean that you can't have a very specific target audience that you really want to speak to as you make the story enjoyable for everyone. And that is what we need to understand here, folks. It's not about, well, who can and who can't enjoy the story. That's a load of BS. You want to be able to create a story that speaks maybe to a very specific group of people, but that can still be enjoyed by anyone who bothers to sit down and read it. Coming back to my time when I was studying film and video, when we were learning about who our target audience is, we had to understand that we were making videos for a very specific group of people. However, it still had to be made in a certain way or within certain parameters in order to be pleasing to general audiences, so that way we could reach even more people. By having a core audience, however, this just helped to guide what we were going to say and how we were going to say it. So, bearing all of that in mind, that's why I hate this argument of, well, this wasn't made for you, or this was made exactly for me. You know what? I'll be honest with you. Let me be entirely honest with all of you out here on the interwebs. There are almost no stories in all of fiction that were written for me, for Lars. In fact, one of the only ones that really immediately comes to mind is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, or more like the first half of the movie The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Why? Because what you see there on the screen, the life that Walter's living through and just the crazy things that his imagination does, that's me on a daily basis. But other than that, there's so few stories where I see myself in that story. I once had a friend in high school who's like, hey, Lars, you should really watch Lars and the Real Girl. I think you'll really like it. I think you'll identify with the main character. And I didn't really. I'm just going to say, Lars and the Real Girl is a brilliant movie. You should definitely watch it. 2 thumbs way, way up for Ryan Gosling in this film. It's a brilliant movie. But yet, I can be very honest with you, I didn't see myself anywhere within that movie. But that didn't mean that I still couldn't enjoy it. Why? Because it was a fantastically made movie. So, what can we as novice authors learn from this stupid internet debate of, this was made for you, this wasn't made for you, this was made for me, well, maybe this wasn't made for me, it was just a stupid argument all the way around? Well, once again, you should know who your audience is, even if you're just writing for yourself. But again, you want to be able to write stories that reach out to as many people as possible. And I really learned this, especially for myself, when writing Bleed, Steam, and Steel. In this book, I originally was just kind of writing this for myself. It was a little side project that I wrote for my own enjoyment that quickly ballooned into something grander. And as I was writing, I realized that one of the characters I was writing was really meant to speak not just to myself back when I had my feet reconstructed and I was in a wheelchair and on crutches for 2 years of my life, but also to everyone else who has ever had to suffer through really big physical trauma in their lives, or maybe who struggles with a physical disability, or who has come to live with that physical disability. I really wanted a part of my story to speak to those kinds of people and help to empower them by showing a very capable character despite his many weaknesses. I also wanted to help people to see possibly their struggles with telling the truth, or dealing with the secrets that they are forced to shoulder. I think a lot of us have at least one of those things that we have to deal with. Or the matters of family. It's so easy to write broken families, but honestly, it's very difficult to write a good, happy family. And I really wanted to capture that with Asuka's character. I love writing Asuka. She's got so much going on, but one of the things I absolutely loved writing is the relationship between herself, her brother, her younger sister, and her mother, showing just this fantastic family dynamic where even though they are separated by distance and by social status, that doesn't mean that they still can't get along with each other, which is a big thing for a lot of families. So even though I was primarily at first writing this for myself, I began to find other audiences that I could speak to. And I put my darndest into this book in order to make sure that I could speak to as many people as possible. Also, when I was writing the book Knights of Halley Cruise, I specifically wrote this book to speak to teenagers. And one of the big things is this, is that I wrote a very thick, big book. And I said, teens can read this. I know it's a lot. Trust me, as a high school teacher, I know that not a whole lot of them are going to just jump at the opportunity to read a massive novel. But yet, if they actually will take the time to read this novel right here, they will find themselves taken on an amazing teenager adventure. And for the teens who have read Knights of Halley Cruise, all of them have had positive things to say about how it was just a whole lot of fun. It was an adventure that they didn't expect to have, and that they really identified with the characters. And that made me so happy because I reached my target audience. Now, despite that, there are adults who have also read this book who have enjoyed it, despite the fact that they're not teenagers. They were not my target audience. But I did my best to write this story to the best of my ability, so that way anyone who picked it up and opened up its pages would be able to enjoy it. And that's what we need to worry about as authors. Yes, you should know who you are writing for. You should have your target audience, because that target audience will help you to hone the story. But you should always write your story well enough that anyone can enjoy it. And if you don't do that, do not be upset when your story falls flat. That is why I think it is so important for us to really pull back the curtain on this whole stupid argument of who a story is made for, and just accept the fact that while you do need to have your target audiences, any story needs to be told in such a good way that it can speak to everyone. The only times when you really kind of want to buck this trend is if you are really diving into some deep, heavy subject matter, like art house films, or maybe something like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. No, I would not hand that to a kid, or even to a teenager, because it's very, very weighty and heavy. This is definitely something meant for very mature adults to consume and to think about. But honestly, those stories are more the exception than the rule. And when you want to focus on the rule, especially as a novice author, so that way you can hone your craft as an author. So that way you can reach out to the most people possible. And as you improve in your craft, you will then learn what kind of specific stories you might want to tell in the future that will speak just specifically to a general audience. But still, again, you want to make sure that you're writing your story to its absolute best, so that way it can reach the widest audience possible, even if it's not people who are part of your original target audience. Why? Because the world needs your stories, and if you write them to the best of your ability, that's honestly the best that we can ask for. So, before I wax yet more pedantic and eloquent, let's wrap it up right here. Again, understand who your target audience is, but make sure that your story is written well enough that it can appeal to general audiences. Boom! There. Simple. It's sweet and simple, and we don't need to argue about it. Now, with all that being said, if you're looking for more solid writing advice, please feel free to check out the other videos that we have here on our YouTube channel. Also, please feel free to drop by Camille's Harem, the podcast, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works, to have yet more writing discussions and advice, but this time brought to you by the entire Harem. It's a great fun. We love it. It's a bunch of laughs. Check it out. We also have writing exercises for you over at our Pinterest page, and we would love for you to join our ever-growing community of novice authors. Links for all of that and more are down in the description. And until the next video, y'all, thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing, and tschüss.